discuss sustainable management of areas under agriculture, aquaculture, and forestry. And it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Peter Kenmore, who is an agricultural entomologist with FAO. He is the chief of the Plant Protection Service and co-chairs the Interdepartmental Working Group on Biodiversity for Food and Agriculture. Dr. Peter Kenmore.
Use time. I'm going to update where I am. The description was not bad as of 7 months ago. I am now FAO's representative in India, so I live here full time. As will become clear, I've spent about 23 of the last 35 years in Asia full time. Right. Perfect. Thank you. No, that's it. Let's go to the show. The most important thing in this picture is Mrs. Elizabeth Baratza, who is a farmer scientist. When she was explaining to some high-level researcher from NARO, the National Agricultural Research Organization in Uganda, who had come across the border, she was explaining how a leafhopper carried mosaic streak virus from plant to plant. She was also making a great implicit criticism of the national research system in her country because it was on a hybrid that had been declared virus resistant. But of course it wasn't, because evolution is true and selection happens and viruses change and vectors change. She, with her own observations, dealt with this in the field and was able to explain it. The point is, the only way and the most important way that we are going to get to sustainable management is by empowering farmer scientists, by empowering fisher folk scientists and forest dwelling scientists. People who have tremendous local knowledge, but they're not sitting in a museum. Indigenous technical knowledge is not a museum collection. That's another mistake people make. It's an active research process, an active local research process, and that's how we're going to achieve sustainable management in agriculture, aquaculture, forestry, fisheries, everything. So yeah, there's this target 7, but the most important thing in this picture is Mrs. Baratza explaining to a certified researcher the reality on the ground, not a dumbed down reality, but a reality of something fairly technical, of how a disease in plants is spread by an insect. Right, I'm going to talk about only 3 things, because 15 minutes isn't very long. 3 things: pollination, aquaculture, particularly issues on how you feed the fish, and then, no surprise, natural, occurring, biological pest control in intensified systems, particularly in a rice system. So 3 things that are mentioned in the blurb, the pretty colored blurb on Aichi Target 7 control. Okay? Right, so we start with pollination. This is about people. Again, who's important? What's important? People. This is a nice bug. It's a great bug. Okay, it's a hairy bug, so it's good at pollinating. Okay? I don't know. The point is, it's a bug that happens to be pollinating a mango flower, but the point is, it's at work. Solitary bees, stingless bees, all sorts of things. Managing them by putting them into places where they're growing fruit and fruit trees, or growing vegetable seeds. Seeds for vegetable crops. Oh yeah, these are the fruits. Ah, good. That's the laser. Apples, plums, peaches, citrus, and strawberry. Each of these is at least purportedly the right flower from each of these fruits, and with a honeybee of a different local variety, different genotypes, all these things, happily working to achieve its own purposes and in the process pollinate these commercial crops. Green. Sure, do I need them? Fruit numbers is green, fruit weight is red. Look at that. This is the percent increase. This isn't the total. This is the increment. This is the positive contribution of those pollinators and those people who are managing the pollinators. Check it out. Okay, fruit number, you go from about 30% up to about 47% increase. Fruit weight goes from 10% increase into a staggering 115%. And I got to tell you, this is peer-reviewed stuff. Data from observations with the National Bee Board of Indian pollinators don't produce anything. So you get like 10 times increases. Okay? That's a lot. It's 1,000%. Point is, this is what you get when pollination is present. You also get improvement in quality. Anytime you look at a strawberry that looks a little crooked, okay? Strawberry looks crooked. Why is it crooked? Because it wasn't sufficiently pollinated. Because it had to depend on either self-pollination, which is real wimpy in strawberries, maybe wind pollination, which is random. So if you get a strawberry that looks like that, instead of like this, then it wasn't pollinated right. Every time you see one in the market, remember the pollinators and the people that manage them. Vegetable seeds. Now look, vegetable seeds, probably in this esteemed, distinguished CBD, probably a lot of talk about things like vegetable seeds is going to go on in things like treaties and trade and intellectual property. Okay? It's about making money. So here we've got seed pod number. And these are neat things. I mean, this is like a lettuce. This is what lettuce looks like when it's seeding. Blooming out. These are both some kind of mustards. Mustards or cauliflowers or something. This is mom kids running in a field. It's an incredible picture. All right, so what are we looking at here? Increments. Each of these, this is, okay, the first two probably aren't additive. Full disclosure statistics. The blue and the red are probably very highly correlated. Don't add them. But the numbers, weight, maybe a little bit less. Forget about adding up. Just look at the totals. We're getting anywhere from 15% increase in lettuce up to 35% increase plus in cabbage. So, and the thing is, horticulturalists, and particularly researchers that like to build up their own intellectual property portfolio and breed and breed and breed, that's fine, but they have a hard time understanding let's see, an economic symbiosis, is that you get much better production, both in numbers and in quality, when you've got pollinators in the mix. Okay, what's the number? 87% of the crops in the world depend to a greater or lesser extent on pollination. Okay, full disclosure, that's not the big cereals. The whole last section is about rice, so we'll get to the cereals. The point is, after the cereals, probably 90% of the crops grown in the world are dependent to a greater or lesser extent on pollination. Most of it by bees. Other bugs too, but mostly bees. Some bats, some butterflies, some hummingbirds. So great stuff has been done. Was it 12 years ago now? 12 years ago in Nairobi, Linda Collette, on the floor of COP, created an international pollinator initiative with an assist from a gentleman named Braulio. And that's where all this stuff started. And in those days, we were considered radical when we said total value of pollination, added value of pollination in the world was about $50 billion. Reiner Krell and I did that number. Big, big controversial number. People, brothers and sisters. Today, no, last year, November 2011, article published in Acta Entomologica Sinica. I don't read Chinese, but the abstract and the captions are in English. The value of pollinated crops in China alone is $52 billion. Real time. Okay? So obviously people are sort of recalibrating their estimates. It's important. It has to do with people managing parts of ecosystems as ecosystems, and it can be made better. Great literature on this. There's an INFDOC 29. Anyway, there's an INFDOC. I think it's 20, is it 27 or 29? Go look at it. It's pretty. It's got nice pictures, but it also has good numbers in it. I apologize. I am going to talk about fish. But you said, thank God, that the last thing you said in your talk was all the other targets have to help, right? 7 is helping 6. Right, and these numbers, again, okay, you know, they all come out of some kind of FAO database. Point is, fish increasingly becomes the most important, certainly the most important animal protein in developing countries. It grows and grows and grows. And brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it's about aquaculture. That slope is not going to change. There's going to be more and more production from aquaculture. Okay? Okay. And if we try to do, we are chomping down the food chain out there. There's all sorts of ecosystem distress going to happen if we don't have the aquaculture. So aquaculture is where it's going to happen. And so that's what's going to, so can we make aquaculture more sustainable? Many ways. I'm only going to say two, I think. Okay, one, Cambodia, and here in South Asia, maybe Bangladesh. In any case, the point is that you go into aquaculture, which requires some intensification. What we learned in studies in Cambodia and in Laos is that a tremendous range of aquatic biodiversity, of animal species in managed areas is already being eaten. Bunches of fish. These are in rice fields, these are in ponds next to rice field, and this is the great one. Ichthyopicus bananicus. Look at that, right? It's a spice that's sort of put into soup and things in the Mekong region. And point is, as you intensify aquaculture production, you have to be careful it doesn't become symbiosis between local communities and the important. It's not just that it's protein. It's also fatty acids. It's also micronutrients. The aquatic species that are harvested and eaten are not just benefiting people because of protein, but because of other things as well. The first thing is, yes, aquaculture, sorry. Yes, go ahead with your aquaculture, but no, don't let it disrupt a more balanced idea of food security in those communities. Okay, the black line. The black line is the percentage of aquacultured species that do not receive supplemental food. Okay? Supplemental food is sorghum, crushing it up, drying it, crushing it up, mixing it with a bunch of fish that you've dried and chopped up into pieces, fish meal. So you get fish meal, you get sorghum, a bunch of other things. And as remember that first graph, that aquaculture is going up. So now it's whatever this is, 34% only. If those services of the aquatic environment in which these fish are being aquacultured is managed better, you don't have to put as much feed into it. And if you have feed, you also got to think about a sustainable way to grow those cereal crops. So it is an issue, and each of these aquaculture are dependent on feeds like these. These are all fish feeds, going out by trucks and by canal boat and things like that across different places. Most of this is around the Bay of Bengal. That as we go more aquaculture, we also have, we may avoid chomping down the food chain of the marine food web, but we have to think about the sustainability of the food supply. Okay. These are all pathologies. These are rice fields that are dead, dead, dead. This white, I think, in the back where I was, this is in near Kumbakonam, Tangimur in Tamil Nadu. Also, the rice field is dying because they're being sprayed, and they didn't need to be sprayed. And this is Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and South India. You get a hold of this black line, as opposed to this number of pests, you get this number of pests. Lots and lots of pests when you spray, and not when you don't spray. So why is that? It's counterintuitive and want to be like economists. The answer is, this is the bad guy bug. These are adult, female, pregnant brown plant hoppers. Here's one eating 2 of those all at once. This is a water strider. There's about a dozen good species of them. And this is a creature that specializes on searching the rice plant with antennae, like that. And when it taps the plant, it's got chemosensors and can find out where the pest laid the eggs and then kills the eggs. I mean, it sucks the eggs out. It's an egg specialist. It's an egg feeder. Okay? Good guys, right? Okay, now, they're in an ecosystem, and most of them are in the water. This is the aquatic realm. This is the terrestrial, or above the water at least, realm. And it's interesting that aquatic realm, of course, the energy supply is not coming directly from sunlight, but from decomposing organic matter. So what you find is, and this is work from Bill Settle and colleagues, what you find is when the organic matter in that mud in the soil is low, the number of good guy bugs is like this. When there's more organic matter, the number of good guy bugs, especially the predators, goes up significantly. So you've got a tie-in between how you manage organic matter. This is the finale. Great, it's on the field level. Great, and it's farmer empowering because rice fields are about maybe 5,000 square meters. The expertise has to be decentralized massively. Can you show national impact? So I'm going to show you national impact of changes in India. It's a story. It starts a while ago. Here's food grain production. If you'll agree with me, there's sort of a slope here, and then when the Green Revolution hits, the slope bends up. So it kind of goes like this, and then like that. Like that, right? Up a bit, and then up sharp. Wheat, sorghum, millet. So that by around 1991, you got about 170 million metric tons. Let's take a look at pesticide use. And this is now measured not in millions of tons. Sorry, this is actually tons. I'm wrong when I say. It's doing about the same thing, right? They both go up. And actually what's funny here is you get a little steeper before the Green Revolution. When it gets on a slope of the Green Revolution, you're there. Now, let's take a look at what happened to food production. Food production keeps going up. Food grains. Last year, metric tons of food. Way more than they need for actual sufficiency. It's great. This was a drought in 2003. This was a drought in 2009. But that line basically goes up. Okay? What happened to the pesticides, people? Think about it for a second. You saw what happened to begin with, pesticides. It dropped precipitously. Pesticides now are much less. They're like, I think, continued to go up. I think UNEP back at CSD 19, rest in peace, at CSD 19, UNEP came out with a book called, what was it? Decoupling. Decoupling. Studies all around the world. Take production away from bad inputs. Well, this is one of the best examples there is. 1,000 metric tons down to about 42,000 metric tons. Okay, let's talk about why it may have happened. So in around 85, the Minister of Agriculture declared a national integrated pest management policy. As far as I can see, that didn't change anything. It was a nice idea, but it wasn't the right one. It wasn't enough. The Finance Ministry put a tax on pesticides. And it seems to me that that's, at least at the same time, we were also increasing a lot money spent on farmer empowerment, farmers' field schools, and things like that. But the point is that you need to have the right kind of policy change. You have to think about ways to do that. If we take the peak, and we say if that had continued at that peak, then this would have been the amount of pesticides used up till now, which is about 460,000 tons of active grade insecticides, pesticides, about 70% insecticides. Pesticides that we have saved in India since that policy change. If we take to what is to me a reasonable, certainly for economics, a very reasonable assumption, which is that they would have continued, as fertilizers did, on that same slope of increase, then the savings is something like 875,000 tons. What's the value in dollars? Too much of a deflation. You're talking about $36 billion savings. Now, a little coda here. Interesting, what it probably wasn't caused by was the release of BT. That's interesting. For the world, Clive James and the guys say that they've saved about 600,000 tons of pesticides globally since 1996 in reduction. Without having done that, saved more. I think that's kind of nice. Gone up a little bit, now it's come down a little bit last year. I'm not sure what's going on, but the fundamental point is that India is growing record amounts of food. So, from the people with the problems in the rice fields, the pathologies, we've moved into, I think, a positive win-win cycle. All of these are women, either in Bangladesh or Pakistan, who are in farmer field schools, looking at crops, analyzing collections, counting good guy bugs versus bad guy bugs. All of this is happening, and there are, around the world, certainly it's still a drop in the bucket, but it's persistent, and it keeps going. And local governments, including the state you are sitting in right now, Andhra Pradesh, keeps from state government funds $2 million a year going in farmer field school programs. And so there's a bit of sustainability there too. Thank you all very much.